I'm in an industry that I would say there's 80% of is just garbage. It's just garbage. And they're going to put you into some kind of little mold about what you have to do and how you have to do it, completely squashing any actual personality and who you really are and your genuine self. So what my approach is that it is that you need to be who you are and what you do, because there are people who want and need that. So the first thing is to really dive into, your client thinking, who your ideal client is, what do they want, need, or lack? Why does it matter to them? So they can, and then you reverse engineer that for yourself and the communication that you're doing. Then you're looking at who is that ideal client. And then you're doing the research on them. Where do they hang out? What are some of the characteristics of these, really diving into the psychographics, what keeps them up at night, so that you can, what are those big goals that they have, and how does what's the monetizable pain? And then you bring that back together. Again, you go back to your client thinking. Now you've got a message. You've got the right message to make that connection with who you are and who they are and why it is that connection that's a win-win.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. It's been 15 years since I left behind my former VP of marketing job. That feels like a lifetime ago. And in truth, it really is. For my world as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a business coach is far removed from the dark colored suits, the 80-hour work weeks, and all the corporate games that once filled my world. Now, don't get me wrong. It was a great journey at the time and an intricate evolution of me. I raised my son on the oil and gas software industry. It was a great gig for a single mom. I traveled the world. I learned to lead. I learned strategy. I learned collaboration, all of the things that shape me into who I am today and how I serve my clients today. No doubt I bring wisdom from those days into my work with my entrepreneur clients today. As a human, however, I evolved exponentially in these past 15 years from a mind, body, spirit perspective and as a businesswoman. What made us successful in the corporate world isn't what makes us successful as entrepreneurs, especially in this day and age. Even what once worked in the world of entrepreneurship is no longer working. Times have changed. We are being called and have been called to lead a new paradigm of business. I see women entrepreneurs leading the way. Not only are we bringing new ways of doing business, we are integrating our wisdom, our intuition, our souls. We are prioritizing self-care, and we are making waves of impact on the communities that we serve. And yes, we're blowing past our former corporate ceilings. That is exciting, my friends. If you are being called to grow your business in this way, I invite you to join me on May 24th for Extraordinary Women Prosper, a one-day online business retreat. Prosper will help you elevate your vision for your business, your community, and your life. We are going to be digging into new ways of business strategy, simplifying your business strategy so you have more time prosperity and more wealth prosperity. We are going to look at ways that you are elevating your voice, your vision, and your visibility. It's going to be a powerful day. You can get all the details at CamiGellner.com/prosper. And speaking of former corporate execs leading business in a new way, I'm excited to introduce you to our guest, Lynn Whitbeck, today. Lynn has 30 plus years of executive sales experience and today helps business owners and entrepreneurs up their sales game. She is the founder and CEO of Petite2Queen and host of the podcast Get More Clients. Today, Lynn shares her story and her extraordinary wisdom in the world of sales. Get out your pen and get ready to capture her good wisdom. Let's meet Lynn Whitbeck, the Queen of Sales. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio, Lynn. It is great to have you here today.
Cami, it's such a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, it's a privilege to have you here and to hear your great wisdom. Tell us where you're joining us from today.
I am on Lopez Island in beautiful Washington State, United States.
I know where that is. Oh my God. I was there last fall.
Oh,
I was
wow.
totally there last fall. That's so cool.
You were riding the rock.
Yeah. Yeah. We were on a sailing trip with my family. And so we were island hopping and doing all of the things. And what a beautiful place you live in.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So you must have come into Fisherman's Bay then.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we did. And it's like we hit all the little islands there, and it was really a fabulous week. It was truly something I will take forever with me because it was such a beautiful space. So yeah, so that's super cool, super, super cool. So we're going to be jamming on one of my favorite topics today on sales. And you come with a world of experience in the world of sales. You came out of being a corporate executive salesperson, and now you teach that to women like me and other women around the world. So I'm excited to hear your wisdom on that. And what I'd really like to do is to dig into your stories of what got you to doing what you're doing right now. What was it that got you to this space of working with particularly women? You work mostly with women today?
I work with both men and women, but I really look to help women in sales because so many have had really negative experiences and they think of sales as icky, but the only way you're going to grow your business and scale and get to that prosperity and abundance is to sell your product or services.
Yeah,
so
that's the only way we do it, right?
It's an absolutely critical skill to learn.
Yeah.
And to really flip your mindset about it because you're not selling anyone. You're guiding them to a decision.
And it's a win-win thing when you get there, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And if you have a phenomenal, which I know that all you beautiful women out there do, product or service, and you can create, impact for the business owner, for the business, for an individual, for their team, for their community, then, you literally have a moral obligation to help and serve and make that connection. Yeah. And in turn, there's an exchange of value for that.
Yeah. I had my own story with sales early on in my business. I mean, as we were talking on the green room, I've been doing this for about 13 years now. And early on, I definitely had my space of learning to fall in love with sales. I had to do that because I did not come into being a business owner, an entrepreneur, loving sales. I had been a VP of marketing for my career for so many years. And, so I worked really closely with sales, and I created a lot of sales tools and, messaging and all the sorts of things. But I had a perception in my mind about sales. So I'm excited. I know this is something we're going to dig into, just that the stories that we can tell ourselves in the world of sales and how we break through those. Today I actually love sales, but there was a time that I can tell you I did not. So looking forward to your expertise there. But let's start with your story. So you were in sales, you were an executive in sales as a VP of sales. So tell us a little bit about more of your journey into the work you do today and how you found yourself into this space.
Yeah, I was a global VP of sales. I was literally being flown all over the world. Mm-hmm. Which was exhausting.
Totally. I don't even like to travel.
It's so glamorous, and it's like,
it's not.
No. You're on a plane, you're working on the plane.
Yeah.
Then you're getting to the hotel. Then you're working that night to catch up on things. They're getting just enough sleep, to barely function the next day.
Yeah. I did the global traveling
except for
well.
These days, the Uber ride from the airport to the hotel.
Yeah. I did many years of that myself, and I really... that was one of those things that I don't care to do again is to have that level of travel again, because it's not fun. It's not glamorous. So you were there, you're traveling around the world.
Yeah. And I had an opportunity presented itself to become a COO of a startup.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did want to get off that train. And there'd been some other things that went on with the Fortune 500 company that I worked with, just a cultural shift that had been occurring over the several years. And it was from the leadership from the top. It just turned very mean. Mm-hmm. And, where people were, going around with a dagger between their teeth, and it just was not a healthy environment to be in either. So, so long story short, I took that leap, and I actually was a COO for a couple startups, and then I did sales consulting, and I was on that journey while my husband had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so it gave me a lot more flexibility.
Yeah.
But I was still essentially working full time, but it just gave me a lot more flexibility so that I could be his advocate, go on every appointment with him, et cetera, make the most of the time that we had. And that was also a period of transition for me, because I went, well, I had a life before Bruce, my husband's name was Bruce, and I will have a life after Bruce. Right. And what do I want that life to look like?
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to start my own business. And, I'd been essentially doing that with being a consultant, a sales consultant and business development consultant. And of course, I'd done the 2 startups. So I went, yeah, okay, I've got this. And
dive in.
It's been, it's been 6 years. It's been a great experience, and I'm loving it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And so one of the things I love to dig into, because my clients, literally, when I look across my client base, they are women who were very successful corporate execs, and they took the leap. They've been building their business, and they're taking it to this new level, and they're exceeding their old former corporate salaries. And that's exciting to me when I can see that happening. I think we take away some of those ceilings that are out there. And so when you think about your journey into, making that transition, and it's one of the things that I am always I'm always curious, like, what really makes that transition work well, and what are some of the things that people stumble on? And what were some of the things that worked well, and what were some of the things you stumbled on as you were making that transition?
Well, I would definitely say that I'm the poster child for taking the long journey around to travel a short distance. And I really feel that, trusting your gut and your instincts is so vitally important.
And did you do that right out of the gate? I mean, were you doing that back in the corporate world and then came right here, or was that new?
I always did that, but when I really started running my own business, and especially transitioning to a completely online, environment, and I had never done social media, none of that. There were a number of things that were, it was a really steep learning curve. It was sort of like fire hose to the face. In sales, in my position in sales, it was really about building the relationships with the clients, really asking the right questions, really uncovering what their true problems and the pain points and those areas of opportunity and the gaps, and then making sure that our solution was the right fit, and then presenting it back to them so they understood what, that outcome was going to look like, that it mattered to them, that it was going to make a significant impact for their business. So it was really a very different than suddenly, like creating content for social media platforms and trying to be on all these different things. So I will say there was a certain amount of wasted time and energy and resources. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I realized when I started early on was, I came out of being a marketing person, right? And so I was like, I got marketing. I know how to do this. Well, it's so incredibly different doing it for a Fortune 500 company versus doing it for yourself. And so there was definitely a big learning curve there. And I think that's when we can put other people around us that can teach us, that has always helped.
Yeah. No, I think that was the number one thing, is also really thinking strategically about, how does this serve me? Yeah. Why does it serve me? How is it going towards that bigger goal? And that was one of those key lessons during that first year, is abandoning certain things because they didn't serve us, and it didn't matter. Yeah. Our audience wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so being able to make those
redirecting
adjustments.
our efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did work? I mean, because I know there's some pieces of you that certainly had made that growth happen for you so well, easily. And so probably not easily. It helped. It was there for you and to support you through that growth.
Well, really, it was distilling everything that I had learned, those Fortune 500 sales secrets, into how that I could translate that and make it accessible to our clients. And execute on the small businesses and entrepreneurs, what we were doing on a larger scale, or on a higher level scale, right? But it really came full circle because I started working at a small business, that had less than 50 employees, and then it grew and grew, and then it was sold, and and I just sort of followed this, this trail, but so I had worked in that world at some point. So it was really great because I could see how those things and what really mattered so that we could then put that whole in the way I did sales, which was different than many of my counterparts, because I always viewed it as an opportunity to help and to serve others. And I believe that was why I was so successful at sales. Because I was being genuine and authentic, and I approached every opportunity with worthy intent, that I truly desired to help and to serve those people. And I was curious. And if I couldn't serve them in the sense of selling them a product or service, I might be able to provide an introduction. I might be able to provide them, who knows, just a recipe on how to make caramel sauce. Tomorrow's National Caramel Day, by the way.
Who knew?
So, and just whatever it happened to be. And, building those long-term relationships that have lasted, my whole life to today.
Yeah. And that's what it is about, is the relationships, right?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. So what is it that you're wanting to help women shift on their perception around sales? And we started to talk about this. I mean, I definitely, when I came into the world of sales for myself, I had to get over the salespeople are pushy, salespeople. I mean, all the things that I used to tell myself. And there was this space where I had to change up my language. I had to look at it through a different lens. What is it about sales and women that you see in your work that you love to really help women shift?
Yeah. So all of us have had that experience of a sleazy, manipulative situation, a pushy salesperson, somebody who's just talking over us, who doesn't listen at all. Many times we've actually been manipulated into making a decision that was just a totally wrong fit, whether it was a coach or some kind of, we're going to walk you through these 5 stages so that you can have leads just rolling in magically where you do no work, Come on. We've
heard it.
I'm in an industry that I would say there's 80% of is just garbage. It's just garbage. And they're going to put you into some kind of little mold about what you have to do and how you have to do it, completely squashing any actual personality and who you really are and your genuine self. So what my approach is that you need to be who you are and what you do, because there are people who want and need that. So the first thing is to really dive into your client thinking, who your ideal client is, what do they want, need, or lack? Why does it matter to them? So they can, and then you reverse engineer that for yourself and the communication that you're doing. Then you're looking at who is that ideal client. And then you're doing the research on them. Where do they hang out? What are some of the characteristics of these, really diving into the psychographics, what keeps them up at night, so that you can, what are those big goals that they have, and
what are their dreams? What do they aspire to?
What's the monetizable pain? Yeah. And then you bring that back together. Again, you go back to your client thinking. Now you've got a message. You've got the right message to make that connection with who you are and who they are and why it is that connection that's a win-win. Yeah. And so those are just the beginning stages, but it's so critical. I mean, you know that from a sales strategic marketing foundation, you have to know what your client's thinking. You have to understand your dream client. You have to understand the journey so that you deliver a delightful journey, so that you earn the right for introductions and referrals and more business. And then it's about building that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and it's about being transparent and none of the manipulative crap. So
Hallelujah.
I guess in my career, I had to learn the rules to break the rules. But I also never played by those rules. I was very fortunate. My first sales mentor was he was my handshake is as good as my word. And he was genuine and authentic, and he gave a darn about delivering a great product or service.
Yeah.
And it was that learning that sales that way is, I guess I guess that's my origin story. I just amazingly fortunate to get started in a man's world with a man who sold with honesty and integrity.
Okay. So your teachers were actually teaching you from the very beginning. So you landed really great
it was
teachers.
an exact value alignment.
Right.
You know,
right.
of course.
Yeah.
And so, which is why it just made it like, well, if I can do one thing, like I sold to marketing executives, take one thing off your plate that you don't have to think about again.
Right.
I was giving you a gift.
Yeah.
And it mattered.
Yeah.
And so it was really a great experience.
And it's easier for us to show up just as ourselves, authentically being who we are, and in making these natural connections person to person versus trying to create all the situations that, can be taught in the world of sales.
Yeah. Because it's, sure, you can wear a mask, but that's not who you really are. And people, trust me, the mask falls, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's why those types of salespeople constantly have churn. They constantly have churn.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So, and going back to that, what is it with women in sales that you think that, the perceptions around sales that you're so good at helping them shift? So think about our listeners right now who are tuning in, and what do you want them to know about their perception of sales?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't need to play this sleazy game. All right.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah.
If you want long-term, healthy, vibrant, thriving relationships, then it's about being of service and delivering value and understanding the value that you're delivering, and that there's an exchange of your talent and your expertise for, financial gain for money.
Yeah.
That's just a natural way that we do business.
Yeah. And we have to do sales as entrepreneurs. Learning to have a different relationship with sales is critical.
Unless you're just got money to burn and it doesn't matter if you ever sell a thing, then sure, you don't have to do sales. But if you want your business to actually be in the black, to be able to hire people, to be able to grow and scale, and even if you always want to be a boutique business, which is great, you don't have to be some huge business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, where you're still creating incredible impact and making a difference, either for them individually or as a business or for their team and their community, you're making I guess when you really think about what are you actually doing and how you're serving them, it helps you reframe your mindset so that you're not selling to anyone. You're guiding them to a decision. Yeah. You're helping them make a decision that's going to improve their situation, their life, their business. And that's the critical mindset shift that needs to occur.
I love that. Guiding them to a decision. So that's, and it can be in being really open. I think that's another thing somebody's taught me over the years is to not be attached to that decision, that you're there, you're supporting them, you're taking them through that journey, but don't be attached to what that decision is.
Right. And also that people make decisions at different times. Some people are ready sooner than other people take 6 months, a year,
Yeah.
or even 2 to make a decision to move forward, or they'll try something else in between. I mean, I've had people come back to me and say, after they said, well, we're going to go in another direction. And they come back and say, well, would you still work with us? And I said, of course. And sometimes people need to take the left turn rather than the right turn. Whatever it happens to be, they take, as I said, the road, the long journey to a short distance. So they come around.
Excellent. Excellent. So I've heard you talk about worthy intent. What is that? Tell us more about that.
So worthy intent means that you truly desire to help and serve others, that you're genuinely curious about, who they are, their situation, what their problems are, what their concerns are, how your product or service is going to impact them. Also even on a personal level, the things that light them up.
Right.
A favorite question of mine is, if you could be anywhere else right now, where would you be? Who would you be with? And what would you be doing?
Lovely.
And so you can learn a great deal about another person, because they could say, I'd be with my daughter, would be at a national park and would going on a walk, or would be at the interpretive center. Yeah. So it tells you quite a bit about me in that one sentence, right?
Totally.
But it gives you a whole avenue of areas to explore, to get to know them better as a human being, as another human being. So worthy intent is also that desire that there is no making the sale fit. It either is a fit, or they are someone that might be a fit later down the road. There's still a great relationship. They could become a referral partner or a resource in some other ways. But if it's not a fit, then you're going to be honest and let them know that. Yeah. And point them in the right direction.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, it's really just being human. Human to human is really what you're talking about right here. It's really that connection there. And what about, you've also talked about why client perception equals truth. Tell us a little bit about that.
So essentially, that's like getting into the head of your client and their client thinking. Because you could have a situation where, whatever it is, but the bottom line is that this even comes through when you're having a disagreement with your partner or something. Their perception equals their truth. Right. And when you're in sales, you need to be adaptable and flexible, and you need to understand that truth. So I'll give you an example. And this was back in the day, and I sold printing, corporate printing, and we had a new account. Their number one pain point was they could not get their manuals done on time, and they had critical deliveries dates so that they could have these shipped with product. And so that was the primary reason that they switched suppliers. And so that was like the big thing. I had to get these manuals done on time, but I wasn't asking them other questions. The first project went, they gave it to us late. We still got it done on time. The next project, they gave it to us even later, and we actually delivered a day early. I mean, I thought we were just rocking it. And the same with the third order. And then all of a sudden, they just like, well, we're going to be switching suppliers. And it was like, what? But we don't like the paper you're printing it on. And I had never asked that question about all the other things about their satisfaction with the order. I was so focused on making that one delivery date. But their perception was we were actually using a comparable paper. And, it's sort of like if you go to a Staples, you can just choose which paper you want to put in the photocopy machine. In this case, it was big press equipment, but regardless, that's such an easy thing to solve. But I wasn't asking the questions, and I wasn't tapping into their perception. And they weren't forthcoming about it. But this was something that's the thing. As a salesperson, you are literally a detective. And you need to be wearing that detective hat and not making assumptions. So I happened early in my career. So it really helped me after that to always constantly be asking additional questions so that I understood, if there was anything else they could change, what would it be?
Yeah.
If there was anything they'd like to improve upon or modify. I mean, I was always really in tune with that so that we could pivot and refine what we were doing so that the client was 110% satisfied. So that's what I mean by client perception equals truth, and really getting inside their head about what's going on. And that really does require you to put on that Sherlock Holmes hat.
Yeah. One of the things I often say, and when we're looking at it from a marketing perspective, is get into our clients' stories. What are the stories they're telling themselves over and over every single day? What are they, waking up in the middle of the night with? It's like getting into their stories and understanding their stories so that we can really speak to what I call their love language. So I love that example of that. So good. And so let's talk about follow-up, because I know that's one of the things that often, can fall by the side. People are like, oh, I don't want to bug people. I don't want to, those kind of stories that can come forward. What do you have to say about follow-up?
Well, failure to follow up is the number one deadly sin of sales. Most sales occur after multiple follow-ups. Mm-hmm. And so here's the thing. You have to follow up with your kids to find out if they put their laundry in the hamper, for goodness sakes. Follow-up is a natural part of life. The key is to deliver value with that follow-up and to lead with the value. Make it worth their time.
Yeah.
That it matters to them. And when you do that, it's no longer you're not bugging them, you're not hounding them. Instead, you're actually delivering value, once again, to help them guide the sale forward. And people can be completely silent when they receive the follow-up, whatever it happens to be. And there's so many different methods and formats, and you should absolutely mix and match and mix it up as you go along. But they're still recognizing that you provided value.
Okay.
And it's a very effective way to move the sale forward because, as I said, people get busy. Mm-hmm. They're ready to purchase at different times. They have different things going on. And the follow-up is a very effective way to move the sale forward and actually have a much higher close rate and acquisition rate.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting into that, what kind of systems do you use in the world of follow-up? How do you track?
So, I mean, everyone can pick their tool of choice, whether it's, an elaborate CRM system, whether you're just doing it in Google Notes, it's whatever system works for you. The most important thing, though, is actually to figure out what that strategy looks like and what materials and assets that you're going to deliver. As I have a frog in my throat, it's thinking about all the things that you already have. You have lots of different types of content. You and I are doing this show right now.
Right.
I could provide the podcast, add the link as an asset.
Right.
Oh, Cammie, I was just on this phenomenal podcast and I talked about follow-up and I gave a couple of key tips that I think would be really important for you. Just take a listen the next time you're walking the dog or you're, driving to the grocery store or you're doing your daily workout. So enjoy. Oh,
Perfect.
by the way, this is Lynn, So anyway, I wrote that as a voicemail, right? And then I send you a triumphant triangle. I send it as an email so that you have the link and it's just a click away.
Anyway. Triumphant triangle.
Yeah, well, so that's a 3-tiered piece. So in that case, I led with a voicemail, like a phone call. I immediately send the email. That's step 2. Step 3 is 3 business days later that I send that same content either in a voice message on a DM or as a text message, wherever they hang out, so that they get the message a third time.
Yeah.
And so that's a triumphant triangle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the key with follow-up is to understand your strategy and that you have follow-up based on where are they at in the sales cycle. Did you just meet and have a strategy session? Well, they're going to need different types of follow-up, rather as, you've given them a full proposal and they're sort of digesting it.
Yeah.
You have to follow up when you're waiting for them to sign a legal contract. Come on.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow up, it just ends up getting lost in the wayside and the deal's never closed.
Yeah.
So follow-up is actually critical. And then figuring out what assets you have and what can help move the sale forward at these different stages so that you create the templates so that they're a grab and go.
Yeah.
And it's more effective and efficient, and it easily enables you to scale because now you have this all planned out for the next salesperson that you bring on to provide your products and services.
Yeah.
And so they're ready to hit the ground running.
I love it. And I love that you're pulling from assets that you've got existing around you. I mean, we're creating so much content on every single day. So it's like, what can you use and what can you repurpose based on what that initial conversation was and where there's an opportunity to deliver more value to them, to extend that, to build on that relationship, to grow that relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
So good. So good. So what's next for you? What are you most excited about and what you're building right now?
Well, right now I'm just really loving where we're at. And so I keep having the frog in my throat. I'm really excited about the group programs that we've developed. I've done so much one-on-one private client work, which is fabulous. I mean, I just completely immerse myself in my client's world.
Yeah.
But it's something I did for the first time last year. And I discovered I could help 12 people at the same time as helping one person.
And boy, is that much better for you.
Yeah. Well, it was just, it's a different rate, of course.
Yeah.
Private clients pay a lot more, but for private consulting, but, it was just, I mean, I love to help and serve others.
And you have wonderful expertise to be sharing with others that can really be scaled across delivery.
Yeah.
And
we do everything live.
Scenario.
So there's that interaction, that human to human connection.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about where we're headed with that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so awesome. And where can people learn more about you and your work?
You can go to Petite2Queen. That's a digit 2 in the middle, Petite2Queen.com. And I'm also the only Lynn Whitbeck on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's awesome. And you've got a podcast because I'm going to get to be on your show. What is the name of your podcast?
So I actually have a couple shows. I have Claim Your Career Crown, and Cammie, you're going to be our wonderful guest on Claim Your Career Crown. And I think we're talking about how to stand out in a crowd, which is fantastic. And so important for entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Yes.
And I also have a TV show called Get More Clients, and I teach and train on sales every week.
Excellent.
And you can join me live at 8 a.m. on Wednesdays. That's Pacific Standard or Pacific, whatever we are, daylight time right now. But Pacific
and where
time.
do people find that?
You can either I do the live on Win-Win Women Network or on Facebook. So it's on both.
Excellent. And where can they just learn more in general about you? What's the best place?
At Petite2Queen.com.
Excellent. Okay. The final question I always close with are, what 3 pearls of wisdom would you like to leave with our audience today?
So the most important thing, I think, is for everyone to recognize that you have the power to choose, no matter what the situation is. So when my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I'm going to be perfectly straight, I had a 1-week pity party. Okay. But at that point I had a choice. I could either choose to wallow in this situation, or I could choose to make the best of it, the time we had left, and what I could do to make his journey as good as possible. So in the darkest of times, when it doesn't seem that we have a choice, we do have a choice. And I really want everyone, whether it's personal or it's a business situation, it's there. You just have to look for it.
Yeah.
And to find that way to help you move forward in a better, more positive way.
Yeah.
Because once you get down that cyclone of calamity, it gets more and more difficult to claw your way out. But even there, you have the option to choose to claw your way out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess that was one long piece of, and I guess the second one is that absolutely always, be who you are, embrace who you are and be excited about who you are. Because there's only one you. There's only one you. Even if you're a twin or a triplet, there's only one you.
Only one you.
And I guess my last piece of advice would be to just, live life. and enjoy everything you can about every day, even the smallest things of just being able to stand outside. Here I am on beautiful Lopez Island and breathe clean, fresh air.
Yeah.
And enjoy listening to the wind blow through the trees, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Take that moment for yourself, and feel the gratitude.
So good. So good. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for all of your good wisdom today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I'm so glad to know you.
Yeah, thank you, Cammy. It was a pleasure to be here.